So now what we have to do is we have to style and place the list that shows when we click this. So when we click it, we've got to take the list and we need to position it down here. And I think we can
Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Mark here, and I'm going to go over your major project for the week. And it's really cool. So, this is a SaaS page, okay, software as a service. And this is specifically designed to help you be able to close real projects like
Hey, what's up everybody? Jason here. In this video, we are going to set up a project base for us to start coding our new website in. So we're simply just going to create a new project and then set up some of the core foundational things that we need so that we're ready to hit the ground running. So go ahead and open up your text editor and create a new project. So I'm going to open up a folder here, do a new folder. Let's see, actually I'm going to throw this on my desktop. Then we'll do a new folder and I'm going to call this CodeRad. All right, so we'll go ahead and create that and then I'm going to open it up. All right, so what we're going to do here is we're going to set up a few files and folders and get some basic file organization here in our project. So we know that we need an index.html file, right? Because when our project is served up onto a server, the server is going to be looking for that index file so it can load all the essential information from that file. So let's go ahead and create a new file, and then we're going to do the index.html. All right, so here's our first file. Now, the next thing we need to do is we need to manage our style sheets. Now, in the past, we've just used a simple single style sheet, and we've been able to throw everything in there. But if we pull open the mock-up here, there's a few things to consider here. It looks like we're going to have a lot of custom styles in here. We also know that this needs to be mobile responsive. And we're probably going to need to set some base default styles here, things for like our headers and our paragraphs, unordered lists, things like that. So what we can do to help organize this is create a new folder, and I'm going to call this CSS. Now, when it comes down to project architecture, what it really is coming down to is what works for you. So there's like practices out there that are like good practices or common practices of organizing and structuring the project tree here. But really in the end, at the end of the day, it's does this organization method that we're using make sense? If you're working on a team of developers, does the project tree organization make sense and is it easy to navigate through? So what we're going to do is create this CSS directory, and we're actually going to split up our CSS files. All right, because if we were to pack all of our style sheets into one file, that file is going to get out of control and get really, really messy. So let's go ahead and create some files here. So the first file that I want to create here is this is going to be a default CSS file. And then in here, we're just going to put some basic default overrides. Things to like the semantic elements. So if we want to change, the color of the font of header tags, paragraph, unordered list, any of the just regular element overrides that we want to do, we'll add some base styles in here. Now we know that we also need a place to put all of our custom styles. So let's go ahead and just create a normal styles.css file. And this can actually be called anything you want. If you want to call it main or styles or Hello Kitty, whatever you want to do, you can name this file whatever you want. I always just name it styles. Now, if we wanted to, we could actually create an additional style sheet here and have one to store all of our media queries in. So anything that's in charge of mobile responsive design, we can put in a separate CSS file. So let's go ahead, create a new file. I'm just going to call this responsive.css. And now we have 3 different style sheets to organize our CSS. Now, one thing to note with this is don't go crazy separating all of your CSS into all these different files. Because what happens here when we're working with just CSS itself, each one of these files that we're going to import into our index file is a separate HTTP request. So if you've put 10 or 15 different CSS files in here, you're going to be making a bunch of HTTP requests to load those style sheets from the server. And we don't want to do that. So we're going to just keep it to one file, coming down to simple single style sheet, and we've been able to throw everything in there. But if we pull open the mockup here, there's a few things like that for you. So there's like practice is create a new folder, and I'm going to call this CSS. Our CSS files. So I don't need this. And we've got our meta tags here. And then in the title here, we'll just add the title of our page, code rad. And then we've got some meta tags for descriptions. And then in the title here, we'll just add the title for SEO. I'll just put my cool website. And then we've got some meta tags for descriptions. And then this one here, this one's actually really important. So you have to have this meta tag when you're working with mobile responsive design. Your website needs to know how to load the viewport and to be able to detect different device widths. So this one right here, you've got to add this. All right, and then it just has, an empty link tag here, so we can link in our style sheets. I'm going to add some space here. Now, when we're working with multiple style sheets here, they're going to be imported the same exact way as how we link a single style sheet. We're just going to have 3 of these. Now, the thing that's going to be different here is when we're importing style sheets, it's going to work the same way as a cascading style sheet. And what I mean by that is it's read from top to bottom. So the order that we import these things actually matter. So if we have some class names in default, for an example, that have certain style rules, and then in one of these other files, we override those, depending on which one is loaded first is going to determine whether that's the correct style override or not. So let's just kind of step back and think about what style sheet we want to import here first. So we know that our default here is going to hold all of our base styles. All right, simple element selectors that have simple styles that can be easily overwritten. So this one would make sense to add first because it's going to apply base styles throughout the website. And we know here that in styles, we're going to add all of our custom CSS that might, in some cases, overwrite some of the defaults. So let's go ahead and add the default style sheet first. And the way that we add this path is actually going to be a little bit different than what we've normally worked with. And that's because you have to think about the project architecture. So before, we had our index and our CSS file all at the root level. Same level, right? But now we've thrown our style sheets here in a directory. So if I was to write out default, my text editor isn't correcting anything for me. And that's because I just have to take a half step out of this root level up to my project directory level so I can look down and see the content in here. So to do that, it's just a simple period, half step, /. Now I can see my CSS directory, and then I'm going to select the default CSS. Now the next style sheet we want to import here is either going to be the styles or the responsive. Okay, so we have to kind of take a step back and think about this a little bit. So our styles CSS is going to hold all of our custom styles and overwrite some default styles if it needs to in some cases. And then we have the responsive CSS that's going to handle all the media queries when the viewport is in a mobile responsive state. So do you think we should import the responsive CSS next or the styles? It's going to be the styles next and responsive last. And here's why. So say in our styles sheet here, we have a class that says that all the title tags should be red on a desktop. Okay? And then in the responsive style sheet, we say, hey, when the viewport is like the size of an iPad screen, then change all these title classes to have the color green. So if I was to visit your website from my iPad, all right, and we had responsive loaded here first, it would say, hey, this guy's visiting the website from an iPad. Go ahead and apply the color green to all the title classes. And so it's going to do that. But then the last style sheet is going to be imported, which is going to be styles, which says, hey, all the title tags are going to be red. All right, so it's going to ruin the media query that we set for it. So let's go ahead and add the styles in next. Got to step out that directory there. So we've got the CSS, styles, and then the last one is going to be our responsive. All right, cool. So now we've got this all set up. Now, one thing that I like to do is I like to test that my style sheets are connected properly. So I'm just going to add a header 1 tag here and do hello world. All right, save that, and then in the defaults, I'm going to do a header 1 and then do a color of red. All right, and then I'm going to use, let's see, I have to have the index file selected. Oh man, where's my go live? It's loading up on my other screen. Hold on. All right, cool. So we've got the hello world, so that's red, that works. All right, I'm going to remove the style, save again, make sure it's black, okay? In the styles here, I'm gonna do a header 1, do the same thing. I guess I could have copy and pasted that, but whatever. All right, so that's working. Save it again, it's black, great. Come to responsive, paste, save, switch, okay. So all of my style sheets are connected properly and they're working. So it's always a good idea to check out the style sheets, make sure that they're imported correctly. The worst is when you've built all this HTML, added all these classes, all these styles, and then go to load the project for the first time and all the styles are broken because you didn't import them correctly. So make sure you double check your work. I'll go ahead and remove this now because we don't need it. All right, so the last thing that we're gonna do here is set up a place where we can store images. So if we check out the mockup here, we have a couple of images. All right, we've got images that we need to store. And so what we're going to do, we're going to create a directory for that. All right, and we're going to call this assets. Now technically you can call this directory whatever you want, but it is a common practice that anytime you have a website or project that has images, different file types like maybe SVGs or PowerPoints, even fonts, if you're loading fonts directly into the project, that you create an assets directory. And then inside of here, that's where we organize the different types of assets. So we're going to do another directory and we're going to call this images. Now on my text editor, this is showing a little bit of a weird syntax because I have a single folder inside of a folder. It's just giving me a directory path, but if I was to add a new folder like this, like fonts for an example, you can see that assets now has 2 directories in it. All right, but we don't need this, so I'm gonna get rid of it. So now we've got our index file, which is going to house our home page here. We've got a directory to house all of our CSS files, keep it organized. And then we've got a directory to hold all of our assets, and in this case, our images specifically. Now the last thing that I want to do here before we wrap up this video is set up our theme colors. All right, so once we get our themes added, then we'll have everything that we need to hit the ground running with this project. So what I want you to do is go ahead and save whatever progress that you've made in this, and then we're going to open up the default CSS file. Now I mentioned there's something known as CSS variables that we can use to store style values in it. Okay, and so what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to set that up and what the syntax looks like. So its basic usage looks like this. You're going to use a selector. I'll just use a div for an example. And then in here, we're going to declare the CSS variable name, and that's going to start with a double hyphen. And then this name can be anything that you want. In this example, let's do font color base. And then over here, the value can be any valid CSS value. So we could do red for an example. I could even make things super confusing if I wanted to and do 16 pixels. All right, this is just a variable that stores a value. So even though 16 pixels has nothing to do with a font color base, it still stores this value in here. So make sure that when you're naming your CSS variables, whatever the value is that you're assigning to it has some type of relationship, okay? Now, the selector that we use here is going to set the scope of where this variable can be used. And right now what I've done is I've created the scope to be tied to a div tag. So what that means is that this variable here will only be available if I'm applying this to other div tags. Now, a common best practice is to define the custom properties on the root pseudo class so that it can be applied globally across all your HTML documents. And so to create a root pseudo class, we would just do this. All right, and this is a root pseudo class. So this is going to put it at the root of your project. So all of our CSS variables will be made available globally. Now let's go over a simple use case about how to use this real quick, and then we'll finish out our theme variables here. I'm going to swap this back to red since we're dealing with a color here. So to use this, let's say we want the header1 tags to be red. So we'd simply do the color, and then would set the variable like so. We're going to use the var keyword, parentheses, which is going to call a function, and then we simply drop this value inside of it. So it's double hyphen font color base, and my text editor is completing it for me, but I'm going to write it all out. All right, and then end it with the semicolon there. All right, and so that's it. That's all there is to it. We just use the var keyword with parentheses to call a function, and then we just drop in the variable name. And now anytime that we use this, it's going to reference a red color. All right, so back over in our HTML, if I was to add this header1 tag back, all right, save that, and then check out the browser. Where do I have this thing saved? Let's see. There it is. All right, and it works. And then if I was to change this to green, just stores the value, and now it's green. So this is a great way to reference the colors in our theme without having to remember all those hex codes. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this, clean up the HTML, and then let's go ahead and finish adding these styles here. So let's pull open our list here. So let's just make a variable here for, we'll do white and black. So I'm just going to get rid of this, and we'll do white. And then I'm just going to use the shorthand hex of just 3 Fs instead of 6. And then we'll add black. All right, this is going to be the shorthand of 3 zeros. All right, let's pull up that list again. All right, so we have some font colors here. It looks like we have 4 font colors here. Now, when I read this font, I initially think of a font family. So I think we should switch up the name a little bit here. We could do color, which, color is a property for any text or whatever. But I think if we want to be a little bit more explicit, we can do font color. So let's do like font color, dark, base, light, all that. So let's do a font color base. And then this one is going to be 666. I know, pretty scary. And then I'm going to take this, and then we also have the dark. Okay, I'm just going to copy these real fast. We'll get the values here.
Oh, testing.
Right, and then we have a link. All right, so the font color for dark is going to be this one here. I'm going to paste it, and then I'll read it out.
Yeah.
All right, so it's
all right.
212529.
Yeah.
And then the one.
It's working.
It's going to be this one here. It's going to be B0AEBE. And then the last one here is going to be for the link. Grab that. And the one for the link is going to be 57A6FF. All right, cool. So that covers the fonts there. Let's see what else we have on the list. All right, and the next ones we have is going to be contrast, footer, and footer base. All right, let's copy this 3 times. So this one is going to be a footer, and then the footer base, and then the last one. Actually, I think we had contrast in there, but I missed it. So then we have the contrast. All right, so the color for the footer is going to be this color here. It's going to be 34314B. And then the one for the footer base, let me grab that here. And this one is 2E2B45. And then the contrast is actually going to be the same color as the font color light. So I could either copy this
Confused. Why is it showing nothing? Okay, it's just the logos, kind of icons. Images. Don't understand why that one's all white, but the other ones aren't. Okay. Let's look at that mock-up. Mock-ups. Excuse me. Desktop. That is an entirely different project. No, it's this one. That's fine. It's fine. There's other people looking at it right now. Can I make a copy of this? Basically, you got one section, two sections, three sections. Four. Top section is 1028 pixels wide.
And paste it down here, or you can actually assign a CSS variable to a CSS variable. So I could even do something like this and do the font color light this way. So we'll just do it this way because that's kind of cool. And then next on our list, let's do the success and danger. All right, so we'll do the success, and this is going to be like a green color for us. And the success is going to be this color here, FF. We've got everything, created our primary index file here. Hey, what's up everybody, Jason here. In this video, we are going to set up the default styles for our project. So we're going to have some custom fonts here. So we're going to utilize Google Fonts for those. And then we're going to set up some default styles here to override some of the default styles that the browser sets. So we'll go in here and create our own. So to get started, let's go ahead and take care of those custom fonts. So what we're going to do is open up your browser, and then I want you to Google Fonts, and we're just going to hop into the website here. And the two fonts that we're going to be using
like this as a freelancer or for your portfolio, this is a really important stepping stone for you. So imagine a company's hiring you to build them a website for their brand new SaaS, their SaaS product, software as a service, and they need a website. So here's the website here. Let me refresh it so we can see its magic. There's animations here. You don't have to implement those as the core requirements. That'll be extra credit. But you're going to be able to, everything here will provide you with all of these assets. You can use the assets for education only. You can't use them in your published website, so just keep that in mind. You'd have to replace these for your own websites, okay? That's the license on these. And you're going to build it just like this. The gradients, the backgrounds, the layouts here with the elements, okay? You're going to have cards here. They're clickable. They can go to some other website. The link doesn't matter for this assignment. Another box here you got to build out. Everything built out just like this page here, okay? Just like this page. Even this line here with these elements, a video goes here. Another box with a person and a quote, some graphics back there. Again, we'll provide all the graphics, some more graphics here. And then it goes into pricing. Again, animations will be optional extra credit. Then down here, there's a lead capture form with all this information on here where someone could submit an email that does not have to work. And then you build the footer here with all these links. And these links can just go to whatever websites. But it's got to look really nice, and including this bottom portion here and even the information down below. You need to implement all of this just as we see here. You'll also want to implement up here at the top right, you're going to see these tabs here. They don't mean anything, but you're going to want to implement those to look just like they are, okay? Those links up at the top. And let me just open this on mobile so you can see it. So you're going to want to implement it in mobile as well. Must be mobile friendly. We'll go through this as well too. It's the same thing, just more properly formatted for mobile. They've taken out some things. You be able to close real projects like this as a freelancer or for your portfolio. This is a really important stepping stone for you. So imagine a company's hiring you to build them a website for their brand new SaaS, their SaaS product, software as a service, and they need a website. So here's the website here. Let me refresh it so we can see its magic. There's animations here. You don't have to implement those as the core requirements. That'll be extra credit. But you're going to be able to, everything here will provide you with all of these assets. You can use the assets for education only. You can't use them in your published website, so just keep that in mind. You'd have to replace these for your own websites, okay? That's the license on these. And you're going to build it just like this. The gradients, the backgrounds, the layouts here with the elements, okay? You're going to have cards here. They're clickable. They can go to some other website. The link doesn't matter for this assignment. Another box here you got to build out. Everything built out just like this page here, okay? Just like this page. Even this line here with these elements, a video goes here. Another box with a person and a quote, some graphics back there. Again, we'll provide all the graphics, some more graphics here. And then it goes into pricing. Again, animations will be optional extra credit. Then down here, there's a lead capture form with all this information on here where someone could submit an email that does not have to work. And then you build the footer here with all these links. And these links can just go to whatever websites. But it's got to look really nice, and including this bottom portion here and even the information down below. You need to implement all of this just as we see here. You'll also want to implement up here at the top right, you're going to see these.
Okay, implement it all. Got it. All right. Let's. There, I want the mock-up.
Is Open Sans and Hind or Hind. I don't know how to pronounce it. So we'll search open, and then we have the Open Sans right here. And then we're going to grab 4 font weights here.
So yeah, did they tell me what font they want me to use? Project SaaS. Build the website exactly as depicted. Cards and key benefits section must have hover effect, must support mobile, iPad, tablet, desktop. No duplicate styles. Consistent indentation. Okay. We use this blue up here a lot. Besides that, I don't really see what other color we're using a lot. This is like a. It's not black, it's like a gray. So is that the only two things it's going to be using?
Project at the body here. And here we can specify, all right, and then the 700 bold. Hey, what's up everybody? Jason here. In this video, we are going to set up the default styles for our project. So we're going to have some custom fonts here. So we're going to utilize Google Fonts for those. And then we're going to set up some default styles here to override some of the default styles that the browser sets. So we'll go in here and create our own. So to get started, let's go ahead and take care of those custom fonts. So what we're going to do is open up your browser, and then I want you to Google Fonts, and we're just going to hop into the website here. And the 2 fonts that we're going to be using is Open Sans and Hind or Hind. I don't know how to pronounce it. So we'll search open, and then we have the Open Sans right here. And then we're going to grab 4 font weights here, and pay attention whether it's going to be the regular one or the italic. We just want the regular ones here. So we're going to do the 300, 400, and then the 600 semi-bold, all right, and then the 700 bold. All right, and then if we open up this panel here, we'll see our fonts here. And so let's go ahead and click on the Embed tab, and let's go ahead and just copy this. All right, so back over in our...
Whoa. I don't have an embeds tab, sir.
Let's go ahead and click...
Yours says review, and then...
click on the Embed tab, and let's...
I think it's this one. It's link. That's why.
Go ahead and just copy this. All right, so back over in our project, what we're going to do is link this in the head of our document, and we're going to put this before our own personal imports here. So I'll just paste it there, and then we're going to grab one more font style. We'll go back to browse.
Hold on a second. Fix how that looks real quick. Yes. That would go. href, link route, href.
Fonts, and then here
Maybe I didn't copy something right.
we'll search for the hind, and then select it here. And here we're going to add 5 font styles. Now, if I was to just add this like so, notice how it's appending this different font style to the existing one that I have here. So you can see we have the Open Sans, and then we have this hind font right here. What I want to do is I'm going to separate these into 2 separate links. And the only reason I'm going to do that is for readability. We can, of course, just include this all in one import if we want, but just for the sake of readability, we're going to make this one a separate one. So I'm just going to go back to fonts. I guess I'll just refresh the browser here. It still has my other fonts. Okay. Anyways, we can remove it from our tray here, and then go back into the hind fonts. And then we'll go ahead and select actually all of these 5 here. So 1,
300, 400, 500,
2, 3, 4,
600,
5.
700.
Okay, so we've got that, and then let's go over to the embed, and we'll go ahead and copy this. And then remember down here, this is going to be the CSS syntax of how we implement this. So let's hop back over to our editor. I'm going to paste this below.
Pre-connect. See, his doesn't have all that extra stuff. That's why mine looks different. Oops.
All right, so now that we're set up with the fonts, let's go ahead and add some default styles to our page here. So first, let's go ahead and grab the body tag here. So this is going to apply style rules at the base of our project, at the body here. And here we can specify what we want, like the font weight to be, the font family, font size, line height, things like that. So let's go ahead and start with the font family. All right, so the font family that we're going to use here is the Open Sans. So we're going to use the quotes. We're going to do Open Sans. And then it's going to have that fallback of sans serif. And then next, let's go ahead and set up the font weight. And we'll make this a default of 400. And then we can set the line height, and we'll do 1.6. And the line height here just determines the space between each line. So for an example, you can see that straight up here on our code editor, right? We've got a space between each line. So this one, we're just increasing the line space, the line height just a little bit to make it a little bit more readable. And then the next one we'll do here is the letter spacing. And this is just kind of a safety catch to make sure that the letter spacing is set to 0. This way, we're in control and we set it ourselves instead of the browser. And then we'll set up the base color for all the font in our page. So right now, browsers default all the text to be black, but we've actually got a different base here, a different shade that we're going to be using. So we'll just set this to our font color base. And speaking of the font color base here, I actually don't see our font color link. I don't know if we added that. We might as well just go ahead and do that now while we're here so we don't forget.
Mockups. Open. Okay. Got the color. Color. We want to make it a variable. We want to make it the font base color. Semicolon. Okay, cool. Yeah. Yeah, boy.
So let's do font color link. And then this color is going to be 57A6FF. Sorry.
Let's see. What does it tell me? What? Font color link. Let's see. Links are that blue. Yep. Would also be the button. Any other colors? There's black. That is just normal black, right? Zoom out. Just normal black. I think that's default if you don't specify, so should be an issue. So we got, I think that's the logo. Font color dark. Yes. Color ink. All right, I like that.
Sorry for shifting gears there for a minute. Didn't want to forget that. All right, so let's hop back down into the body here. So we've taken care of the base color. Now let's go ahead and just remove that margin that the browser always adds, and then make sure that it's not adding any padding. That way all of our content will, suck to the edges of the screen. And the next thing we're going to handle is box sizing. Let me bring up a web page real quick so I can explain what that is and show you how it works. All right, so this is from MDN. So box sizing is a CSS property that sets how the total width and height of an element is calculated. So let me quickly just cover what context box and border box means. So content box gives the default CSS box sizing behavior. So if you set an element's width to 100 pixels, then the element's content box is 100 pixels. And the width of any border or padding will be added to the final rendered width, making the element wider than 100 pixels. So they've got this little example up here. So right now we have the box sizing set to content box and the width is 100%. So it looks normal, right? But now what we're doing is we're adding a border and a padding to this, which is now going to make it larger than 100%. Watch what happens. All right, so now all of a sudden our content is flowing outside of this parent container. Now the border box property, let's dive into that. So this tells the browser to account for any border and padding in the values you specify for an element's width and height. So if you set the element's width to 100, that 100 pixels will include any border or padding you added, and the content box will actually shrink to absorb the extra width. All right, so it says right here, this typically makes it much easier to size elements. So watch what happens now when we do the box sizing a border box. It takes the content and shrinks it so that the border and the padding are included into this width. So including this border box, it's a lot easier to work with the elements and size them. So the way that we're going to handle this project-wide at a global level is we're going to use the asterisk, which is the all selector. So it's going to select every single element on the page. And we're going to group this with the after pseudo class. All right, and then we're also going to add the before pseudo class. And then we'll add our braces. And what this is doing is it's selecting all the elements, and then some elements have a before and after style, but we're going to grab everything here, and then we'll set our box sizing to border box. And now we simply just have elements that are a lot easier to work with and to size. Now the next style we're going to handle here is our unordered list. Now it's common when you're building a nav bar that you use an unordered list to create the list items and then to put the links in them, because an unordered list has accessibility properties to it. It allows you to tab through the different links here. So with an unordered list, there is by default margins and paddings that are added and like bullet points or numbers. So what we want to do is remove that. So we're going to do a padding of 0. We're going to remove the margin. So we'll do a margin of 0. And then these unordered lists, they also have a list style, like either a numbered or a bullet list. So we're going to do a list style of none. All right, so that's going to handle the unordered list for us. Now next, we're going to dive into the anchor tags, and anchor tags usually have like some type of underline to them, right? So we don't want that in our website. There was nothing like that in our design, but we know we have links going to other pages because we've got our navigational bar. So we want to remove the text decoration from this. And I'm going to do a text decoration of none. Now you may have seen me do this before where I put a style box sizing to border box into this width. So including this border box, it's a lot easier to work with the elements and size them. So the way that we're going to handle this project-wide at a global level is we're going to use the asterisk, which is the all selector. So it's going to select every single element on the page. And we're going to group this with the after pseudo class. All right, and then we're also going to add the before pseudo class. And then we'll add our braces. And what this is doing is it's selecting all the elements, and then some elements have a before and after style, but we're going to grab everything here, and then we'll set our box sizing to border box. And now we simply just have elements that are a lot easier to work with and to size. Now the next style we're going to handle here is our unordered list. Now it's common when you're building a nav bar that you use an unordered list to create the list items and then to put the links in them, because an unordered list has accessibility properties to it. It allows you to tab through the different links here. So with an unordered list, there is by default margins and paddings that are added and like bullet points or numbers. So what we want to do is remove that. So we're going to do a padding of 0. We're going to remove the margin. So we'll do a margin of 0. And then these unordered lists, they also have a list style, like either a numbered or a bullet list. So we're going to do a list style of none. All right, so that's going to handle the unordered list for us. Now next, we're going to dive into the anchor tags, and anchor tags usually have like some type of underline to them, right? So we don't want that in our website. There was nothing like that in our design, but we know we have links going to other pages because we've got our navigational bar. So we want to remove the text decoration from this. And I'm going to do a text decoration of none. Now you may have seen me do this before where I put a style rule on a single line. If I haven't mentioned or commented about it before, this is a complete personal preference. All right, this isn't like any type of development standard. If I have a single style rule, I like to put it on a single line. If I have multiple style rules, I'll break up the syntax like this. So there's a lot of developers who like to do it like this. And then obviously the other half, they like to, separate it out onto different lines like so. So you're welcome to use whatever syntax that you want. All right, now let's move into the paragraph tags. So paragraphs by default come with a padding on the top and bottom. What we're going to be doing in our project, because we have a title header, we don't want that extra padding with the paragraph tags we're going to put underneath those. So we're going to take all of our paragraph tags and we're going to do a margin top of 0 here. All right, so we've got those taken care of. Now let's dive into the header 2 tags. So we're going to be using these a lot. They're going to be the titles that we're going to put for each of our sections. Now, some browsers, they will interpret the font size a little bit differently for header tags, depending on which browser you're using. So what we want to do is we want to overwrite that and set our own. And so what we're going to do is a font size, and we're going to do 2 rem. We're going to be using rem units in this project. And then we'll set the font weight here to be 500 pixels, or I mean just 500, sorry, not 500 pixels.
Sheesh.
We'll do the line height here of 1.2. Now notice that we set this to be different than the body line height. So we just want the behavior of the line height here to work a little bit differently. All right, and then the next element we'll handle is the images. So we know that our project has a handful of images on it. So here are some default styles that you can add to images to make them look a little bit better and more mobile responsive here. So the first property is going to be the width, and we're going to explicitly set this to 100%. And this is going to just help images fit within their containers better, and then also scale if the viewport size changes. All right, and then we're going to also do a max width of 100%. I know that kind of looks or sounds silly. This will help handle edge case scenarios if the width is for some reason trying to exceed 100%. All right, and then we're going to do a vertical align middle. This just helps with the alignment here. And then we're going to do a border style, and then we're going to add a none to it. Now the last default style that I want to add here is going to be an actual class instead of one of these element selectors. This CSS class that we're going to create here is going to be a container class, and basically what it is it's a default container that basically is used to center content and make sure that it has some padding on the right and left side. And this is something that I do in personal projects, and I see it done a lot in professional projects. All right, so we're just going to create a class called container, and the values it will have here is a width of 100%, and then we'll set a padding left to 15 pixels. Now I know that I said that we are using rem units in this project, and that's fantastic. That's what we're going to be doing. But with this container particularly, I want to make sure that I always have this 15 pixel padding based on any viewport, because I don't want this unit size to be based on whatever the user's font size is set in their browser. I want to make sure that we always have a padding left and a padding right of 15 pixels period. All right, so let's do a padding right of 15 pixels. And then to keep this content centered, we're just going to use the margin left auto and a margin right auto. So let's see, we'll do margin right auto. Now I could have used the shorthand version of this. I could have done margin zero auto, but the reason why I wanted to explicitly set it to left and right is because there might be a scenario where I actually want a margin on the top or the bottom of my container, and I don't want it to default to 0. So I'm explicitly setting it to just the left and right. All right, I think that about does it. So let's check this out here. So we've got our theme colors, our CSS variables. We've got the body tag here, taking care of the box sizing, containers, images, everything. Now looking at this body tag, I guess we could actually set a default font size to this if we wanted to. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's right underneath the font weight, let's do a font size, 0.875. All right, and this translates over to 14 pixels. So that's a wrap for this video. We've got all of our default styles set up. Let's move on.
Sheesh.
Hey, what's up everybody?